Welcome to our channel. My towel ultimately slid and landed softly on the floor in a heap, Lily. He muttered, his voice filled with reverence. His gaze fixed on me. His fingertips stroked down my contours with such delicacy that it felt as if he was imprinting every feature on memory. This was how it all started. My name is Lily, and while it may sound egotistical, beauty has been a constant companion of mine, even at 65. My voluptuous body, beautiful skin, and sparkling smile continue to attract attention. My thick gray hair falls in beautiful waves beyond my shoulders, and my honey brown eyes appear to hide a mystery that captivates those around me. Despite living a calm life, free of romance since my husband's death, I continue to feel the weight of eyes and murmuring wherever I go. However, these issues no longer affect me. My life has become quiet and even predictable, and I've become accustomed to it. I've opted to avoid love, not because of a lack of options. Men of all ages, from distinguished elder gentlemen to youthful suitors, barely older than my own children, have sought my attention. However, I always decline. I tell myself I'm too old for romantic games, but I know it's more than that. I've kept my emotions hidden, living with the scars of loss. The idea of opening myself up again is daunting. My nephew Luke called one evening as the sun sank and the sky turned orange and pink. Luke is the only child of my older sister in his mid-30s. He oozes vitality and wears a wicked grin that suggests mischief. His towering, athletic stature and confident demeanor frequently draw people's attention, particularly ladies. My sister Grace routinely calls to complain about his flirty behavior. Lily, she would say, "This youngster is going to cause me a heart attack one day. He will not stop pursuing ladies." I'd shrug it off and tell her it was only a phase. This is a common trait among boys his age, but deep inside I knew Luke was different. He had an intoxicating charisma that made women fall for him even if they knew better. "Hello, Aunt Lily." Luke greeted me pleasantly on the phone. "I hope I'm not bothering you." "Not at all," I responded. "What's happening? I was wondering if I may spend the weekend at your apartment?" He inquired, his tone slightly unsure. The request took me off guard. Luke rarely requested such favors with his busy work and vibrant social life. He wasn't the kind to seek refuge in my quiet, secluded home. My house is a calm refuge away from the city, hub with a pleasant interior and a garden out back. It's not quite the bustling setting Luke would prefer, but something about his tone made me hesitate. It was not a casual request. There was an undercurrent of fragility. After a time, I spoke with a mix of concern and tenderness in my voice. "Of sure, Luke," I responded enthusiastically. "You are always welcome here. This is your house as well." "Thank you, Aunt Lily," he responded, sounding relieved. "I will be there by Friday evening." After the call ended, I was filled with curiosity. What was he attempting to escape? Was there a romantic mishap, a disagreement with his mother, or something else entirely? Luke has always been an enigma, filled with shocks and intricacies that make him tough to comprehend. I couldn't help but wonder what had brought him to seek peace here and what discoveries the weekend could hold. As Friday neared, the hours appeared to pass faster than normal by the time nighttime arrived. I was sitting in the living room when I heard Luke's car turn into the driveway, standing up. I felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness when I opened the door. I saw Luke, who looked familiar but had altered slightly. He looked effortlessly gorgeous, while dressed casually in dark pants and a fitted black t-shirt that highlighted his athletic form. His smile was as warm and brilliant as ever, but his eyes showed a touch of unease, a muted strain that contrasted with his normal self-assurance. "Aunt Lily." He greeted me warmly, pulling me into a tight embrace. "You look stunning as always." I couldn't help but giggle at his charming personality, which he never seemed to lose. "Are you still as charming as ever?" I responded, smiling. "Come on in, we'll get you situated." Luke came inside, his gaze wandering over the familiar surroundings of my house. The pleasant living area, lit by the soothing glow of warm lights, appeared to welcome him. The aroma of freshly baked bread remained in the air, contributing to the cozy environment. My house had always been a sanctuary, a peaceful haven where one could exhale deeply and feel at rest. But tonight, when Luke examined the area, I could tell he was looking for his place in it, like someone trying to calm the tempest within what had brought him here. And what did he genuinely want this weekend? I suspected I was about to find the answers. "Wow," he mumbled, relaxing into the couch with a long sigh, as if a huge burden had been temporarily eased. "I have really missed this location," I chuckled softly and teased. "You act as if it has been ages since your last visit." He responded by leaning back and briefly closing his eyes. "That's how it feels. Life has been non-stop recently, and I haven't had time to breathe." I raised an eyebrow, my interest piqued, but I chose to keep mute, hoping he would continue instead. He gave a slight smile and shook his head as if he was hesitant to go deeper. Just yet, as the evening passed, we went to the garden where a gentle breeze rustled the trees and carried the lovely aroma of flowering flowers. The tranquil setting seemed to entice him to open up for a while. We sat quietly, the rhythmic chirping of crickets and the rustle of leaves providing a calm background. Eventually, Luke broke the silence. "Aunt Lily is someone you know," he began, his voice unnaturally low. "Sometimes I feel as if I'm stuck in an endless circle. The parties and the women, it's all exciting at first, but after a time it leaves me feeling exhausted." His confession caught me off guard. This was not the confident, carefree Luke. I knew the young man's effortless charisma seemed unshakable. Instead, he was exposing his vulnerabilities. A rush of concern washed over me as I realized how much weight he must have been carrying. After a thoughtful moment, I replied softly, "Perhaps it is time for a change, Luke." He sighed, his gaze drifting away as he looked out at the garden. "Perhaps," he muttered, "but it isn't that simple. Everyone expects me to keep going and stick to the path they believe I should take it. Feels like moving away will disappoint them." I moved closer and rested my hand on his arm. "Luke," I said, my voice steady but full of pity, "you do not have to live up to anyone else's standards. You're still quite young. You have time to figure things out and build a life that is uniquely yours for a long time." He stared at me intensely, his eyes searching mine for comfort. His glance conveyed an unsaid intensity that made my pulse skip unexpectedly. It left me disturbed, for reasons I couldn't pinpoint. The weekend unfolded in a sequence of simple yet memorable moments. Luke, who was initially reserved, relaxed over time, and I found myself more at ease in his company than I had anticipated. His arrival turned out to be a wonderful surprise that I had not expected despite the warmth of our time together. There were brief moments that left me apprehensive. I'd occasionally catch him staring at me with a lingering gaze or smiling softly. Almost privately, it wasn't overt yet. Those encounters had an unspoken depth to them that expressed more than words. Luke's visit brought an unexpected energy to my home. His laughter and energy seemed to fill the previously quiet areas, and his light-hearted taunting lifted my spirits in ways I had not felt in years. It was as if his presence had eased a burden I wasn't aware I was carrying one afternoon, as we stood side by side in the kitchen preparing veggies for supper. I couldn't help but smile at how easily he brought joy to even the most mundane duties. His hands moved quickly and expertly, yet he would occasionally pause to pop a slice of cucumber into his mouth, smirking mischievously. "You're spoiling me," I remarked, with a chuckle that was half taunting, half genuine. He winked playfully, his face warm and genuine. "You deserve it, Aunt Lily," he said gently. "You do so much for everybody else. It's time someone looked after you for a change." His comments moved me deeply, warming a part of me that I had not realized had become frigid. It had been a long time since anyone had made me feel pampered, and Luke did so naturally and without fuss. Whether he was making the perfect cup of tea in the morning or fixing items around the house that I had long forgotten about, his thoughtful gestures said volumes. He made me feel seen and appreciated in a manner I hadn't felt in years, and I realized how much I missed that kind of attention. However, it wasn't just his benevolence that made an effect, that was his playful side. His upbeat demeanor was contagious, frequently taking me off surprise. He had a way of creeping up on me, shocking me with an unexpected hug or a quick kiss on the cheek or back of my neck each time I'd gasp in astonishment, only to hear his warm, taunting tone. "Aunt Lily, you're always quite serious, you need to relax a bit." I'd chuckle, batting him away amusingly. However, the warmth of his touch persisted for a long time, leaving me with feelings I couldn't fully define. Luke settled down next to me one evening. While I was reading a book on the couch, without hesitation, he flung his arm casually over my shoulders. Bending forward to read the pages, I was so enthralled by his closeness that it felt almost overwhelming, and the warmth flowing from his body beside mine could not be ignored. "Is this a love story?" he inquired, his tone low and playful, with a hint of interest that just increased my awareness of him. "Something I was hesitant to admit, that is none of your concern." I shot back, blushing with shame as I felt his intense gaze linger on me. Luke laughed, his rich, resonant laughter sending shivers down my spine. He moved closer, his fingertips lightly brushing across my arm as he adjusted his position. That little touch sent a jolt through me, and I hurriedly rose up, pretending to straighten the curtains to hide my newfound anxiety. "You're too restless," I said, trying to sound upset despite the fact that my heart was racing in my chest. Luke responded with a playful, mischievous tone and a knowing grin that made my breath catch. I didn't answer, instead turning away from him, but no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't get over how he had unsettled me, which I hadn't expected days past. But Luke's impact was clear, the way his hands delicately brushed against mine, the lingering look in his eyes, and the casual yet highly personal character of his actions. All triggered sentiments I couldn't control. It wasn't just his words or acts. It was the way he made me feel alive and awake in a way I hadn't realized I was looking for. I found myself anticipating his taunting embraces and the electrifying charge his very presence seemed to generate. Late one evening, with the home unusually silent, the only sounds in the air were the subtle whir of the ceiling fan overhead and the faint chirp of crickets outside. I was alone in the kitchen putting dishes away when I heard footsteps behind me. I turned to see Luke arrive, his muscular chest and arms exposed the dim light, throwing delicate shadows on his skin. His comfortable, effortless assurance made my heart race, but I couldn't understand why. "Can't sleep?" he inquired, his voice quieter than normal with a tone that sounded almost too close. "Not really," I said, looked at him momentarily before looking away, aware of the weight of his gaze. Luke took a leisurely step forward, closing the distance between me, and leaned casually against the counter. Despite his easy posture, his eyes probed mine eagerly, waiting for me to meet him halfway. "You've been quiet today," he said, his voice tinted with anxiety. "Is everything okay?" I nodded in answer, but the tightness in my chest revealed my genuine feelings. The air between us was thick with a previously unknown tension, oppressive and nearly stifling. His gaze drew me in like a magnet, and for a moment neither of us spoke. The stillness dragged on, weighty and expectant, until he broke it with a whisper that seemed to linger in the space between us. He said, "You know, Aunt Lily," as if making a silent confession, "you are the most beautiful woman I've ever known." My breath caught in my mouth, and I froze. His words struck me with an unexpected force, sending a shock of electricity through me. My heart raced, each beat deafening in the silence surrounding us. Luke stopped saying things like that. I managed to keep my words barely audible as I avoided his sight, unable to match the intensity in his eyes. "Why not?" he inquired, his tone calm, yet vulnerable, with a genuineness that was impossible to reject. "This is the truth." He made another step forward, his hand slowly stretching out, giving me the opportunity to stop him, but I did not. His fingers softly moved a strand of hair away from my face, sending an uncontrollable thrill through me. "Luke, this is not," I continued, but he cut me off, his voice a faint murmur, full of assurance. "This is not what?" he inquired. My heart hammered and my thoughts raced with conflicting emotions. I opened my mouth to object, to put an end to whatever was going on before it could escalate, but no words came out. I stood motionless as his hand went to my waist, the warmth of his touch seeping through my garments and drawing me closer to him. The strength in his arms was felt as they wrapped me, compelling me in ways I hadn't expected. The distance between us vanished, leaving just the quick rhythm of my heartbeat and the strong pressure of his body against mine. "Luke, we cannot," I said, my voice wavering, but I made no attempt to draw away. My body contradicted every conviction I'd held by remaining crushed against him. His lips brushed lightly on my cheek, close enough to my mouth that I could feel the warmth of his breath on my skin. That momentary touch caused my breath to catch, and for a little minute the world seemed to halt. Time seemed suspended with the weight of unspoken emotions filling the silence. I had no idea how long we remained motionless and silent. The words that needed to be said remained unanswered, but they lingered in the air, heated and obvious. I finally broke free, my breathing unsteady, and my heart beating in my ears. "Good night, Luke," I muttered, my voice unsteady and barely audible, laden with feelings I couldn't identify. He didn't try to stop me as I turned and walked away, but I could feel his gaze on me, steady and unrelenting. Following my every move, it felt like he was waiting for me to turn back and reconsider, but I couldn't. Not yet. That night I lay awake, my thoughts racing and unable to relax, replaying the scene over and over. What did I do? What happened between us? I tried to convince myself it was only a passing emotion that would pass. But deep inside, I knew better. Something had changed, and there was no turning back. I didn't want to admit it, but denying it was becoming impossible. I found myself wanting for Luke's attention in ways I had never experienced before. His touch, his presence, and the way his gaze rested on me. There was something about his stare that made me feel beautiful and desired, which I hadn't felt in years. I tried to dismiss the thoughts, but they kept coming back, each time more strong and impossible to ignore. It felt like a risky game that I shouldn't be playing, even as I told myself to stop, to put an end to it before it got too far. A part of me couldn't help but wonder what would happen if I hadn't. What if I let it happen? Luke acted as carefree and lighthearted as usual the next morning, as if nothing had changed and the previous night had not occurred. But when our gazes met, there was an unsaid understanding, a glimmer of something none of us could dismiss. It was slight, yet it remained just beneath the surface, an acknowledgement of the moment we had shared. The tension between us rose gradually and steadily over time, like a never-ending fire. Luke's hands became more confident, methodical, and his taunting comments had a weight that made my heart accelerate. Despite my efforts to resist, I found myself captivated to him. The way he made me feel, the way he reawakened desires I had long suppressed. It was overwhelming, like if something was developing between us that I couldn't dismiss. And no matter how hard I resisted, I knew it was just a matter of time before things got out of hand. The afternoon heat was oppressive, so I felt a chilly shower would be the perfect solution. My room was peaceful, interrupted only by the faint buzz of faraway sounds. Sunlight flowed through the window, painting delicate patterns on the walls and creating a surreal atmosphere. I had just slid out of my clothing, letting them fall to the ground, and wrapped myself in a nice white towel. Its cold fabric felt nice against my skin as I clutched it close. My hair was casually tied back with a few strands, framing my face. Contributing to the inadvertent ease of the situation, I was about to go to the bathroom when I realized I had left my phone on the coffee table in the living room. It did not feel urgent. The phone had been ringing intermittently. With nothing urgent, it could wait. But just as I was ready to turn the bathroom knob, I heard soft, methodical footfall outside my door. The sound ceased, followed by a cautious knock. Aunt Lily Luke's voice came from the opposite side before I could react. The door cracked open, and he appeared in the doorway, clutching my phone. His eyes met mine, and for a brief moment he appeared surprised. "Your phone has been," he began. But his words drifted off as his gaze settled on me. I stood there wrapped only in a towel, my skin moist from the shower. The moisture from the chamber clung to my bare shoulders, making them shimmer slightly. His expression changed and his eyes widened as surprise dawned on his face for a heartbeat. He froze. His mouth opened as if to continue speaking. But no words emerged at that point. My pulse increased and my heart raced in my chest. The room, which had been spacious only seconds before, suddenly appeared to close in the air, becoming heavier with each passing second. "Luke," I mumbled, barely audible but enough to shatter the hush. My throat clenched, and I couldn't utter anything else before I could grasp what was going on. Luke approached me. His movements were rapid and deliberate, and before I could respond, he was standing immediately in front of me. His muscular hands cradled my face tenderly, solid yet sensitive. His fingertips traced the line of my jaw, while his gaze fixed on mine, filled with a mix of trepidation and something deeper. "Something I couldn't identify, Aunt Lily. I can't keep this from you any longer," he said, his voice low and shaking from raw passion. He kissed me without saying another word. The kiss was not what I expected. It was electric, and the intensity left me breathless. His lips, soft, yet insistent, pressed against mine with a searing tenderness that I couldn't resist. For a time, I stood transfixed, astonished, and unable to react, my mind fighting to cope with the emotional maelstrom. But when his hand slid from my waist, bringing me closer, something inside me shifted. Something had been dormant for far too long. There was a hunger until that moment. I had no idea that an aching yearning remained within me. "Luke," I whispered, moving away just enough to speak. But before I could continue, his lips returned to mine, silencing me with another kiss. This one is deeper and more urgent. The intensity of the moment overwhelmed us, and the towel slid slightly beneath the weight of our emotions. I instinctively grasped it closer, but Luke's hands were already there, strong and firm, holding me as if I watched next part.